The scene in Paris opens with a sense of political urgency that has become characteristic of Europe's response to the ongoing war in Ukraine. As winter approaches, and with it the strains of another year of conflict, the weight of diplomatic decisions grows heavier. Paris, long a stage for major political moments, once again becomes the setting where two leaders attempt to reaffirm their shared vision for European security and international stability. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stands beside French President Emmanuel Macron, delivering a warning meant not only for Russia, but for the international community watching closely. What Zelensky communicates is not merely a reflection of Ukraine's immediate circumstances, but a broader argument about the future of global order. His message, shaped by nearly 4 years of war with Russia, holds implications that stretch far beyond the battlefields of Donetsk, Kharkiv or Kherson. Standing at the podium in Paris, he speaks with the clarity of a leader who has watched his country endure destruction, displacement and massive human loss while resisting a far larger adversary. His statement is not improvisational rhetoric. It is the articulation of a principle grounded in recent history, one that seeks to prevent dangerous precedents from taking root. As the cameras focus on him, capturing the determination in his expression, Zelensky delivers a line that has become central to Ukraine's diplomatic posture. We also need to ensure that Russia itself does not perceive anything it could consider as a reward for this war. The war must not become a profitable matter, so that others would not want to repeat such steps. Therefore, we take principled positions on sanctions and accountability for war crimes, on the legal status of our territories currently occupied by Russian forces, on Russian assets, and on the obligation of reconstruction. The aggressor must pay for the aggression. Those words, delivered slowly and deliberately, reverberate through the press room. They summarize an argument Zelensky has made repeatedly, but here in Paris, with Macron beside him, the statement takes on renewed force. The message is aimed not only at Moscow, but also at Western partners who continue debating how far support for Ukraine should go, how long it should last, and whether concessions might eventually be necessary to achieve a negotiated settlement. Zelensky's warning is direct. Peace cannot come at the price of rewarding aggression. To him, any settlement that allows Russia to walk away with territorial gains would undermine not only Ukraine's sovereignty, but also the credibility of international law. The principle he defends is clear: if territorial conquest yields benefits, other nations watching from afar may draw dangerous lessons. In the room, Macron listens with a mixture of concern and solidarity. The French president has been one of Europe's most visible interlocutors on the conflict, trying to balance dialogue with firmness, diplomacy with condemnation. Over the last years, Macron has argued that Europe must build security structures capable of deterring threats while also keeping channels of communication open. But in this moment, his posture reflects an understanding that the Ukrainian president's warning is not theoretical, it is rooted in lived experience and a brutally unfolding reality. The press conference unfolds against a larger backdrop of shifting geopolitics. European capitals are reassessing their defences, re-evaluating their military-industrial capacities and debating how far they must go to ensure that Ukraine is not left fighting alone. In Brussels, Berlin, Warsaw and Vilnius, discussions about ammunition shortages, sanctions enforcement and the long-term economic toll of the conflict are frequent. Many governments recognise that their support for Kyiv is not simply an act of solidarity, but an investment in the stability of the continent. For Zelensky, however, the stakes are not just diplomatic or strategic, they are existential. Every town flattened by artillery, every family uprooted, every soldier lost, reinforces his belief that compromise must not involve legitimizing Russia's gains. He knows that the longer the war drags on, the more pressure will emerge from various corners of the international stage to negotiate, to settle, to seek some form of realistic resolution. But in his view, a resolution that rewards the aggressor is no resolution at all. From his perspective, what some call realism risks becoming appeasement. And appeasement, he believes, invites repetition. His reference to the profitability of war highlights a concern that if Russia walks away with territorial or political advantages, future conflicts elsewhere, Asia, Africa, the Middle East, could follow similar logic. His statement is not simply about Ukraine's borders, but about the broader consequences of undermining the principle that a nation's sovereignty cannot be erased through force. As he speaks, the press room remains quiet, the words echoing with the weight of accumulated months of suffering. Macron nods as Zelensky emphasizes sanctions, accountability, and the issue of reconstruction. The Ukrainian president insists that Russia must be held financially responsible for the destruction it has caused. His call for using frozen Russian assets for rebuilding Ukraine has become one of the most debated policy proposals in Western capitals. Some leaders support the idea as morally justified and strategically sound, while others warn it could trigger long-term challenges in global financial systems. Yet Zelensky remains firm. His mention of legal obligations and reconstruction is not merely theoretical. Cities such as Mariupol, Bakhmut, and Izium have been reduced to skeletal remains. Entire neighborhoods no longer exist. Roads, bridges, hospitals, schools, critical infrastructure has been shattered. Rebuilding will require hundreds of billions, and Ukraine argues that the burden should not fall entirely on taxpayers from allied nations. The principle he champions is that the perpetrator should bear the cost of its actions. In the press conference, Macron reiterates France's support for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. He emphasizes that Europe cannot allow instability to spread and that supporting Ukraine remains essential for the security of the continent. But Macron also speaks about diplomacy, about channels of communication that might later restore peace. In his remarks, one can sense the French approach: firm support for Ukraine, but an insistence that Europe must remain involved in shaping what comes after the conflict. Still, Zelensky's tone is a reminder that Ukraine's patience for diplomatic ambiguity is limited. He acknowledges the efforts of allies, including France, but the core of his message is about ensuring that no one, neither Russia nor other actors observing from a distance, comes to view war as a viable political strategy. His statement is not isolated from recent events on the battlefield. Russian forces have intensified drone strikes, missile barrages, and attempts to seize strategic points. Civilians continue to be displaced as fighting shifts from region to region. Ukraine is preparing for another difficult winter, one marked by energy shortages and infrastructure vulnerabilities. The human cost grows daily, and Zelensky's words reflect a determination that this suffering must not be in vain. His reference to war crimes also underscores a demand repeatedly echoed by Ukrainian officials: justice for atrocities committed in Bucha, Irpin, Mariupol, and other areas where civilians were targeted or mistreated. International investigators, human rights organizations, and legal bodies have documented numerous cases of torture, execution, and forced deportations. Zelensky insists that accountability must be part of any post-war settlement, arguing that without justice, peace will remain fragile and incomplete. In many ways, the scene in Paris symbolizes the broader European dilemma. Europe stands united behind Ukraine, at least philosophically, but practical challenges persist: defense production delays, economic pressures, political divisions within member states, and competing foreign policy priorities. Some governments advocate for more aggressive support, including long-range weapons and accelerated membership talks for Ukraine with the European Union. Others warn that escalation could provoke unpredictable responses from Russia. Zelensky, however, focuses on the underlying principle that aggression must have consequences. His speech reflects a fear that if Russia gains from this conflict, even indirectly, other authoritarian states may be encouraged to pursue their ambitions through force. The ripple effects could extend far beyond Eastern Europe. As the press conference continues, journalists ask questions about negotiations, sanctions, military support, and potential pathways to peace. Zelensky answers carefully, avoiding speculation while reiterating that Ukraine will not surrender its territories. Macron responds by stressing the need for unity and a Europe capable of resisting external threats. To many watching the broadcast, the moment encapsulates the tension between political realities and moral imperatives. Macron seeks diplomatic balance. Zelensky demands moral clarity. Their shared presence demonstrates partnership, but their priorities emerge from different experiences, one from the corridors of European politics, the other from the front lines of war. Yet, despite these differences, their message converges on a key point. The future of Europe depends on preventing Russia's invasion from becoming an international precedent. Zelensky's warning is rooted in the belief that peace endures only when accountability is upheld. His insistence that the aggressor must pay is not simply rhetoric. It is a call to defend a rule-based international order that rejects the normalization of conquest. As the press conference draws to a close, the gravity of Zelensky's statement lingers. His words echo across diplomatic circles, prompting renewed debate about sanctions, enforcement, reconstruction plans, and the conditions under which peace negotiations could be viable. The message is clear. And intentionally so, Ukraine seeks peace, but not one that legitimizes aggression. And in Paris, before the cameras, Zelensky reaffirms that stance with conviction.